If you haven't yet, subscribe to my channel. If this video at any point brings you value, go ahead and like it. Leave a comment. If you disagree with anything I'm about to say, leave a comment. It'd be helpful. Then I can know how to adjust. Maybe I'm missing something. You know, I'm not perfect. Let's get into it. Let's talk about perfectionism. Perfectionism. Is it even possible? Today we're going to talk about that. In my opinion, fuck perfectionism. That's what I have to say. I don't think perfectionism is a good thing. You've probably heard that before. It's not a new thought. A lot of people going around saying perfectionism is a bad thing. I suffer from it. I know that. I think I was delayed in my start to art in general because I was a perfectionist. I don't even think I wanted to admit that I was an artist. I didn't want to come out as an artist, even though I was pursuing an art degree, because of perfectionism. I didn't want to say I'm an artist, because if I said I was an artist, then people would compare me to other artists and maybe I would fall short. Maybe I wasn't good enough. I was trying to be perfect. And part of that was just not saying that I was an artist, because if I didn't say I was an artist, then I couldn't be an imperfect artist. But man, I've changed my mind about that, because I would much rather be an imperfect artist than no artist at all. Come on, what? It's better to be an imperfect artist than to not be an artist. What's up, everybody? What's up, you? I'm Ikoff. Welcome to the podcast. The Ikoff Art Podcast, the Fart Podcast, the Fart Podcast. The Fart Podcast, where we talk about art, creative lifestyle, freedom through art. Fart fucking art, baby. Living that creative lifestyle and escaping the rat race through art. You know, a lot of artists struggle to make money, succumb to the starving artist myth. We busted that. What was that, episode 3? Go back and listen to that one. If you still suffer from the starving artist myth, because it is in fact a myth, we don't believe in that around here. We believe that artists thrive. One of the ways in which artists can thrive is by eliminating the mindset of perfectionism from their life, from their lifestyle, from their way of being. We're going to put perfectionism to rest. We're not going to seek it. We're not going to aim to be perfect anymore. So if you struggle with this, you've come to the right place. Perfectionism only prevents you from creating. It prevents you from doing anything at all. It's a bad goal to shoot for. So I say, fuck perfectionism. And the way that I have overcome perfectionism is by adopting a mindset of finishing it. My new mantra since I've became a full-time artist is just finish it. It's like Nike, just do it. Well, I say just finish it. This is the antidote to perfectionism. We're not striving for perfectionism. We're just striving for completion. How about that? There is an art to finishing work, creative work. Finishing is an art form in itself. It takes work. It's like a muscle. We have to build that muscle. And the best way to build the muscle for finishing artwork is by finishing artwork. Isn't that weird? How does that work, Alex? Well, I have some hypotheses that I'm going to release to you. It's not about what it takes to get a perfect piece of art. We're going to shift that mindset and just figure out what is the bare minimum for calling something complete. Not that we should shoot for the bare minimum, but just discover what this is. What does a drawing need to be considered finished? What does a painting need? What does a sculpture need? What does a garment sewn need? I want to ask you a question. How many masterpieces do you think you'll make in your lifetime? 1, 2, 3 masterpieces? Dozens? You think you'll make a dozen masterpieces? Maybe you'll make hundreds. You're going to be Picasso? Make 100 masterpieces? Just like every other thing you make is a masterpiece. You Basquiat, You wake up from a nap after a 3-day bender and you just shit out a masterpiece on a 8-foot canvas. For real though, how many do you think you're gonna make? How long do you think it's going to take to make each one of those works of art? These are things that I think really have a finite answer. It's just something that maybe you should ask yourself. Can you even make a masterpiece? Can you make a masterpiece if your goal is to make a masterpiece? I would argue probably not. Maybe you're a master. Maybe you've been doing what you do for decades. And so you have a mastery of this process and you actually are trying to make masterpieces consciously. And so you make something close. At least enough people would consider it a masterpiece so that you can call it such. But I bet you wouldn't get there unless you mastered the art of finishing. What if instead of focusing on creating masterpieces, creating perfection, perfect pieces of art, or near perfect pieces of art, what if instead you focused on completing your work, completing the creative process? Everything you start working on, start drawing, start a painting, you finish it. What if that was your goal? These are questions to ask. Ask yourself, see where you're at on the spectrum. And there's a cliche. I've heard this a lot when I'm working on public art, especially when there's a lot of interaction between me and the viewer. And people will ask, is it finished? Or how long until it's finished? Or how do you know when it's finished? People will ask that, which I think is a good question. I've often thought, well, nothing's ever really truly finished. And I think a lot of artists feel this way. Maybe you think that. It's kind of like a joke amongst artists when you're talking about it. It's like, how do you know when your art is finished? And a lot of artists say that it's never truly finished. You just decide to stop working on it. And I think in that realm is a really good place to be. It's a good place to land. And you can feel that way, that art is never really truly finished, in the sense that you could always work on it. You could always make something better, add more layers, add more depth. You could always make it a little bit more interesting, more detailed. But at some point, you got to stop working on it. Otherwise, you're just going to work on that one piece forever, right? And who wants to do that? I don't want to spend my whole life on one piece. I want to switch it up. So eventually, you got to stop working on a piece. And that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about how to discover that. How do you get to that point? I don't really have the answer, spoiler alert, but I am going to be here today to encourage you and motivate you to figure that point out for yourself, just to make that your new goal. If you suffer from perfectionism and if it's stopping you from creating work and it inhibits your creative process and it encourages procrastination, which it often does, it did for me, then let's reframe our minds and focus more on the art of finishing, shall we? If you're not convinced yet, how about this? Would you rather have a body of work of unfinished work, unfinished paintings, unfinished drawings, sculptures, whatever you do, and each one of those pieces has the opportunity, each one of them could be perfect or a masterpiece. So your whole body of work, none of it's finished, but each of them still has the potential to be perfect because it's unfinished. You can still work on them, still perfect, but none of them are finished. Or would you rather have a body of imperfect, completed work that you can sell, move on from, and learn from? I'd rather have the latter. I don't know about you, because at least I would have a body of work. Because guess what? The first body of work is just a work in progress. And I'd rather have an imperfect, completed body of work that I can at least sign, seal, deliver, move on, learn from, and have that inform my next body of work that might be one step closer to perfect. And so in the first scenario, if your goal is finishing, you failed. You didn't succeed. In the second, where you have the body of work that's completed, success, mission accomplished. You completed the work. It's not perfect, but so what? You completed it. I believe that this methodology will get you closer to mastery, ironically, because you're not trying to be perfect, you're just trying to finish stuff. If you're trying to be perfect, you'll never finish stuff. And then how can you become a master if you just have a bunch of incomplete works? You got to stop at some point. You got to call it finished. You see, perfectionism is a block. It's not really even possible. We can make really, really good work and still not be perfect. Perfect is an illusion. It's a block. It impedes us from progressing. It's intimidating and it breeds fear. If you're comparing yourself to perfect, you're always going to be in a state of lack, because we're not perfect as humans. But if you go into every painting confident that you will finish it, you will complete the creative cycle, creative process is cyclical, and you'll complete that if you complete the painting. You'll learn whatever you can from that particular piece, that journey, and you won't be afraid of failure because you won't fail. You will succeed because you'll finish that piece, because your goal is not to make it the best damn thing in the world, which if you tried that, then you would probably fail. I mean, maybe you wouldn't. Maybe you would succeed, but it's not likely. So my advice is treat each piece of art as an experiment. Take risks. That's how you learn. And then you'll succeed no matter what. If that's your goal, to learn, you'll succeed. You'll probably learn something. Even if it's not, it might not be a conscious thing. It could be a subconscious level. But that's the thing. If you focus on finishing work and you build that muscle, you'll just complete more and more and more stuff. And the more you complete, the more you'll learn on a deep subconscious level. And then you're just going to get better. I promise. And the only way that you will fail is if you give up and you just quit and you let fear consume you, fear of that perfectionism, that ideal. Why can't you finish it? Because it's just not good enough? Well, finish it for what it is. Maybe it's a shit piece of art. Cool. Finish it so that it can rest. That idea can rest. And then maybe you can come revisit the concept another time. Doesn't have to be on that same canvas. You can start a new one. Once you're more prepared, once you're ready for that, whatever puzzle that you couldn't solve, move on, finish it, solve it for what it is, put it together. So my challenge for you is to harness the skill of discerning what makes a finished piece. This isn't really an easy task. I'm making it sound so simple. I'm not saying that it's easy, but it's worthwhile. It's worth trying and exerting effort to try and figure that out. You work on a piece and you finish it. You say it's finished. Not just because you're lazy, you don't want to work on it anymore, but like really, truly, as good as you can, finish it. Whatever that means to you, whatever that works for your style, you know what I mean? This is going to be different for whatever your style is. Maybe you're really painterly and it just takes a lot of back and forth and kind of playing around with the paint and the colors and the shapes. Maybe your style is more graphic and you have a design beforehand that you just got to fill the shapes and make it nice and clean and then have a nice smooth outline on. That might be a little easier to tell when you're done because you complete the steps and they're more concrete. Whatever it is, you finish it. Maybe it could have been a little better. Maybe you could have done a little bit more. But on the other side, maybe you could have done too much. I know I've done this before. I've definitely painted things that I could have easily stopped a few strokes sooner and it would have been better, but I overworked it. So there's a reason why you gotta build this muscle about when is something done. It's a mystery, it's ethereal, it's elusive, the concept. It's kind of like a sixth sense, if you will. It's an intangible essence. It's an aesthetic quality that is not black and white. It's not necessarily a finite, solid thing. It's very fluid and ambiguous. But I think you know it when you see it. When you see a completed piece of art that really resonates with you, I think you just know it's kind of settled, it's easy to look at, and I don't know, there's different ways to do this. There's selective finishing, it doesn't have to be all the shapes are filled or whatever. Everything's rendered completely. It's just whatever your style is. Figure out what makes a solid finished piece. The good thing is about it being so ambiguous, even though that seems scary and you can't really quite put your finger on it. It's a little intimidating because it's just you're in the abyss. At the same time, this can be an advantage. There are no rules. You can make your own rules. So you just got to decide what that is for you. Set that as your goal. And the reason I think this is important is because I really think I am only ever as good as this ability, as my ability to finish art. You can't judge me by my works in progress. Oh yeah, he had good potential. Nobody says the great artists were the ones that were, had good potential. They completed work and we judge them by the average of the sum of their work. Or maybe their best work, but honestly, I'm saying judge me on my average completed work, not by my best work. Because my very best work might have been luck. I might have accidentally stumbled upon that. And so you can give me credit for it, I guess, as the human that made it happen, but we're all just vessels, right? As artists, we're just vessels that are transmitting ideas through physical medium And maybe the best art I've ever done, maybe the top 3 pieces, have been just the best vessel that I could be. And I just was really tapped in, and I was able to transmit some really cool concepts. But at the end of the day, I can't just reproduce that. I can only really reproduce that which I have made solid in my process, the average of all of my work combined, all of my finished work. I think I would just rather be prolific. I'd rather be a prolific painter than be considered the producer of a few masterpieces. Like, I'd rather spend my whole life making thousands of pieces of art than to spend my whole life making a dozen phenomenal, perfect pieces. Because it's about the lifestyle, right? I don't know. Maybe that doesn't mean one thing or the other. Let's talk about settling. Maybe that comes to mind. Maybe whenever I say you should just finish and focus on finishing, maybe you think that's settling. I think settling is a dirty word. But if you don't settle at some point with your art, on any particular piece, if you don't settle, then you'll be left unsettled. And maybe you like that. Maybe you like drama and feeling unsettled. But if you like drama, you may be a prima donna. How about that? And now listen, I'm not saying that you shouldn't try your damnedest. This isn't permission to half-ass shit. I'm saying just get it done. I'm not saying just finish and not care and don't give it effort. The opposite is true. Give it your all every time with your complete focus. Just don't attach yourself to an ideal. Don't hyper-focus on the end result being flawless. Just make it as good as you possibly can in the moment with whatever skills you have in whatever stage of life you are in your artist journey. And on top of that, try and do it within a reasonable amount of time. I'm not saying you can't spend a long time on any given piece of art, but like if something could take you 5 hours, but you spend 10 on it, what's the difference between that 5 and 10? Because I kind of think, unless your work is just like super detailed, like some people it just takes them a really long time, especially like 3D work. There's like some logistics that take place and some physics that they got to overcome in building it, and there's like a step-by-step process. I'm not saying that work should be done fast. It's just all work has a lifespan, and you should figure out what that is and accomplish it within a reasonable amount of time. I think that a lot of artists that have trouble finishing work get caught up in that final 10%. And that's the 10% that most people don't see. Only you see it. And yeah, we're creating for ourselves, but if you're getting stressed out on that 10%, is it worth it? You're supposed to be having fun. Art is supposed to be cathartic. Yes, it's work. Stress sometimes is good. Use stress that helps you grow and improve. We want that stress. But if it's stress that doesn't have a payoff and it's just preventing you from completing work because it's the last 10%, I don't know if that's worth it. I think you should shoot for 90%. And then once you get to that 90%, don't worry about the last 10% because that last 10% is just for people that want to be perfect and nobody's going to see it. And if people are going to critique that missing 10%, fuck them. We're not creating for them. We're creating for ourselves and for the people who resonate with our work. Because I promise the 90% is good enough for them. And here's a fun experiment. Go look at your old work. Maybe you'll see work that you remember the process and you remember the struggles that you had with it. But maybe you don't. Maybe you just see the completed work and you're like, oh, that's not that bad. I bet that you would probably forget some of the flaws and the struggles that you were going through when you're working on that piece. It happens with me all the time. I'm not saying you're going to like all your work. And when you see work that you don't like, take note. Figure out what you don't like about that. And same for the work that you do like. Why do you like it? That's where you're going to find, and that's how you're going to discern what completed work is for you. So try not to care about how it could be better and how it could be more perfect. If you're already at that 9%, figure out how to get there and care just enough to carry you across the finish line and then let go. Then release it into the world. Share it with people because that's better than holding it to yourself because you're worried about it not being perfect. People would rather see your imperfect work. It's more inspiring than unfinished work. Perfectionism prolongs procrastination and prevents productivity. How about that? How about them peaches? Beaches. So fuck it. Finish it. And here's what I promise you. If you get better at finishing and you make that your goal, your finished products will just get better over time. That 90% is going to be more potent every handful of pieces that you finish. You're going to think you're settling on 90%, but if it helps you to finish it, sign, seal, deliver, stop critiquing it. Critiquing is good. good in the process. When you're trying to figure out how you can make it better as good as you can, trying your damnedest in the process. But then once you get to that point where it could be done, just let it be done. Let it go. Let it free. Free yourself. This is a lifelong journey. Don't get caught up on one piece. Go for the long game by not spending forever on one thing, but by enhancing your skill to complete work just for creativity's sake. Accept being the fool. This is the path to mastery. Just accept it. You're not going to be as good as you ideally want to be, but that's okay because you're an artist and we're experimenting and we're growing and we're evolving. Shit. I'm still on the journey. I've got so much time to go. I'm only 30. Shoot. Maybe you're older than me. Maybe you're younger than me. Doesn't really matter. We're all on our own journeys. The important thing is to be on the journey. We're learning. We're progressing. We're evolving. And the only way to do that is by accepting where you're at any one given point. Don't use it as an excuse to not try. Like I said, you got to try. But try. And then eventually just call it. Call it good enough. Good enough is good enough. And you know what? I'm not the perfect podcaster, but you're listening. So I'm doing something right. And maybe you wouldn't be here if I hadn't completed hundreds of paintings and dozens of murals. Completed. Signed, sealed, delivered. I started them. I finished them. None of them are perfect. There's some pretty cool ones in there. I like them better the more time that passes in between creating them. Because like I said, you just forget. You forget about all the critiques that you had in your mind while you were painting it. Over time, time heals. And it's great. You just appreciate it. So take it from me. If you haven't completed enough work to figure this out by yourself, take it from me. Completed work is better than incomplete work. And let me tell you, I might not be perfect at this podcasting thing. Even though I've completed quite a bit of artwork, still not a master, still on my way. I'm just getting started on this podcast thing, and it's taken me forever to do this. Same with YouTube. Man, perfectionism bites me in the ass. I'm less confident about my videos than I am just creating a painting because I've done more painting than I've done videos. But I'm going to keep pressing record, damn it. None of these episodes are perfect. None of my videos are perfect. Each one has like an audio defect. There's inconsistent lighting throughout. In fact, I'm just now realizing that I never got my softbox out. I usually have a softbox light right here and it's not there. And I don't even have my temporary quick light up. So I'm probably super dark in this room. Just now realizing that 30 minutes in. Not perfect. Still going to post this video. I'm not going to go back. I'm not going to try and make it perfect. It's imperfect. Actually, I'm kind of glad. If this visual sucks, there you go. I bet it still provides value. Maybe not to you. Maybe you've already written this off and you're like, I wish this guy would stop talking, but I don't know why you're listening still if that's the case. If you're still listening, you probably have found value in this. So it doesn't matter about the lighting. Maybe you want to do videos, but your lighting's not great. Here you go. It's a good example. You don't need perfect lighting. I'm kicking myself still, even though I'm saying this to you. But I know it doesn't matter in the long run. It's going to be better if I just edit this video and upload it. I'm just going to post it. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to keep pressing record. I'm going to keep exporting and uploading and posting videos. I'm going to keep painting because we're on this journey and we're learning and we're not trying to be perfect. We're just trying to get better at completing things because completing things is doing things. I don't think it does count. You are painting if you're working on incomplete projects the whole of your life. It's not painting, but like, I don't know. How much of an artist are you if you're not creating art? And is it creating art if there's nothing at the end? What is there if it's incomplete? So I think I've given you guys a lot of philosophy and not a lot of like solid advice of like how to actually implement this idea into your life. So my suggestion, this is something that I've used to help myself complete works. Set a parameter of time on your creative process. Deadlines are motivating, at least for me. Maybe they're not for you. Maybe they're scary, but I don't know. Maybe that's a good fear. Maybe that's a good motivation to have a deadline. Maybe say an hour to complete a painting. How good can you make a painting in 1 hour? If that's too fast for you, do 2. 3, however much time you have, whatever works for your schedule and your routine and your creative process, just challenge yourself. It's not about, an hour's not enough time to make a painting. Well, change your perception of what a painting is. How good can you make something with an hour of time? Don't think about, I can't make it as good as I want it to be with that little time. Think about how to use that much time to make anything within your skill set. And then at the end of that hour, you have to be done. And I think you'll notice, if you struggle with this, I think something you'll find is in that last like 10 minutes, how many decisions you'll be able to make. Because you have to. You set that parameter on yourself. So You're just going to have to make some decisions. And those decisions, that's what's going to make you progress so much faster. Go back and listen to my last episode, number 5, mini art, painting minis. This practice was something that really helped me with the art of finishing because I would do this for myself. Painting minis was all about this parameter of time and setting a deadline for myself within each project. I would be like 2 hours. That's all I'm going to spend on this painting. Once 2 hours is done, I'm just going to be done with the painting. You know, like I'm not going to just totally leave it empty. If I need 10 more minutes, whatever, you know, but like set that parameter so you have at least a guideline and you'll just know, okay, if I've gone beyond that 2 hours, then I've just put too much in this and I need to figure out how I can work back and simplify things and make decisions faster. And you'll just notice that if you keep practicing this, your finished products are just going to get better and better and better. And that's how you progress. Not by striving for perfection, not by trying to meet your ideal. You know, maybe at first your final product is going to slip and get worse. I'm not going to say you're going to get better like that, especially if you're used to spending a long time. If you spend less time on something, you set these parameters, it might be worse at first. But if you accept that, accept the failure of perfection and embrace the success in just finishing work, those successes will carry you a long way in a very short amount of time. If you don't believe me, if you don't think that I'm right, prove me wrong and try it. I bet you'll at least grow. You'll at least learn something. Maybe you can go back to taking 30 hours on a painting, whatever. That's fine, but at least try this out. Try and set yourself a parameter. Do an hour. Do an hour drawing, an hour painting. If you're doing this just sketch, try a 15-minute sketch. I do a 15-minute sketch every morning. That's what my reels are. That's what my shorts are on YouTube. You can check those out on my channel. Spend 15 minutes. None of those are perfect, but it's about finishing them. We're not trying to be perfect artists. We're trying to be artists. And artists make shit. And you can't really say you've made something if the thing's not done. You're still making it. So what do you want to be? Do you want to be an artist? Do you want to make shit? Fuck perfectionism. Just finish it. Cheers.